cycle, right? President Trump said the crypto reserve will include Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and XRP. Obviously, you guys see the title. It's a little bit clickbaity and kind of funny because the original tweet that he posted said U.S. crypto reserve will elevate the critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the presidential working group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, ADA. I will make sure the U.S. is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again. Of course, I quote tweeted this and said, "Oh no, we have a coiner for president." And obviously, I was being a little funny there. But that being said, he did correct this with a quote tweet that said, "And obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum as other valuable cryptocurrencies will be at the heart of the reserve," and that he also loves Ethereum. You know, my problem here is like XRP's being the one that's listed first, and already we are seeing basically a generation or minting of new XRP by the foundations. They heavily manipulate the supply of that. Apparently that's going to be for a reserve, but that was announced as a possibility here. And it's just crazy that something that is not immutable and doesn't have, you know, a cap on the amount of tokens it can have would be considered for a strategic reserve. In fact, any of these ETFs as well that aren't based on a cryptocurrency that has a supply cap, I don't think should be something you're interested in, right? So if you're going to be, let's say you have a 401k or something along those lines, and you're going to invest in a crypto ETF, you definitely want to do one that has a supply cap, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a guarantee on the fluctuations of the volume of the cryptocurrency, then you don't really have a supply and demand situation where it will go up in price over time. I mean, these are very basic economic principles. So I would think a lot of people would know this or understand this, but it appears even our U.S. presidential, our U.S. president, I was going to say candidate, doesn't even know this. So I don't know what to tell you all. Solana makes sense, I think, as far as and maybe not as much XRP. The reason why Solana makes a little more sense to me is just because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's being used a lot by, retail. And I think Solana, obviously, if you're looking at crypto market right now, and you're looking at the top 100, let's go do that real quick. You're going to see Solana in here at number 6. So if you're doing a quick glance at like which assets you would want to put into a strategic reserve, I assume they look at this type of thing and it's like, okay, Cardano, number 8, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, number 4, obviously going up here recently. They all have the same pattern though, right? This big shoot up over the weekend and then coming back down despite all of this. Now, all hashed up does make a good point that the trade war is dragging down all the markets. That's a fair point, I suppose. But, if we were adhering to the principles of cryptocurrency as laid out in the Bitcoin white paper, I would say in general that it's not like, how do I put this? Cryptocurrency should be a hedge against those things. But unfortunately, we've just turned cryptocurrency into any other asset. And this is obviously compounded by the fact that we do see a push for KYC from crypto projects themselves like Pi. We see, that the same thing from those projects like WorldCoin. We see inflationary assets getting more attention than deflationary assets. We see the more centralized a cryptocurrency is, the more successful it is, whether that be Solana or XRP, for example. And really, I think that we've lost the foundation of what cryptocurrency was supposed to be, which was, a free way for people to transact without the interference of governments or banks. And now, everybody in the crypto market is just saying, govern me harder, daddy. And it's pretty disgusting as a whole. I mean, luckily, we do have Bitcoin still being the big dog and adhering to, the immutability, etc. And hopefully, people will see the value and why Bitcoin does remain to be the king overall. And maybe we go back to, valuing privacy, immutability, transparency, security, and all of these things that have been put to the wayside. But it's just like I tweeted before, if I see, Mega ETH being announced here, which is slated to be the most centralized layer 2 project on the Ethereum blockchain ever, I say, well, yeah, I guess it's going to be successful, because the more centralized things are right now, it appears the better they're performing overall. And I just think that that's going to be, something that we have to contend with overall. But we do have more information on, of course, the digital asset deal here. This was the tweet I saw. Apparently, Trump previously promised to establish that strategic national Bitcoin stockpile at the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville, saying, quote, "It will be the policy of my administration, the United States of America, to keep 100% of the Bitcoin the government currently holds or acquires in the future. We will keep 100% of it." Now, it is important to note that this, people were worried about this idea of virgin Bitcoin being needed for the US government. I just wanted to point out that this quote in particular kind of spits in the face of that. Yes, they will use confiscated Bitcoin. And I think the plan is to continue to hold it, right? I think that's just the way it is. He does say, well, and then the executive order, but it wasn't, this was the one that was weird. President Trump signed the executive order directing the working group on digital assets to study the feasibility of a national crypto reserve and to explore a regulatory framework for stablecoins. The executive order also banned the research and development of a central bank digital currency, which was a big win, in my humble opinion. So it's kind of a bit piecemeal. There are good things and bad things coming out of everything, and I think it's important to realize that. So the banning of a CBDC is extremely important, and I'm glad that happened, right? But it says, quote, "Raise your hand if you think Donald Trump should make the national digital asset stockpile Bitcoin only," the host of the Bitcoin podcast wrote on X. Pierre Richard, the vice president at research at mining company Riot Platforms, also called out the language of the executive order, which deviated from President Trump's earlier promises. Remember, because he had basically said at that time, and he included, if I recall, TikTok. Then there was a second follow-up to that, if you recall, that was basically like Bitcoin only. And it was apparently going to be separate, but now it's getting wrapped back into the digital assets bill. So I'm not so sure that we're going to see a separate Bitcoin strategic reserve. Let me know what you guys think, though. And Noise Generate, thanks for the sub. My chat is not working, so I'm going to try to fix it. I do see it over here, but I don't see it here, and I'm not really sure why. So apologies if I'm not catching it all. There we go. Now we're getting some of it again. I had to refresh. It seems like the chat is going faster than my app can keep up with. So unfortunately, what I'll do though is switch on over to here just so I can see everybody and just pop it out in YouTube directly. So give me 1 second, boys, because unfortunately we have some technical difficulties there. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Don't type slower, type faster. I can keep up with that. Pi was on a database. The blockchain came way later. Yes, that is true, Sheldon. But there's a lot of issues with Pi. I think you guys can watch my video as far as that's concerned. We can talk about it a little bit more later on. But even despite all of this, we're still experiencing a ton of volatility within cryptocurrency as a whole. And we also still have to wait on the plan to face Congress. So the crypto market surged after Trump's reserve announcement, but analysts warn the rally may be temporary as regulatory hurdles remain. Cryptocurrency market surged following, obviously, that's just a repeat. And then on March 2nd, Trump said his working group on digital assets had been directed to include 3 altcoins, which was XRP, Solana, and of course Cardano in the US crypto reserve. Now, if you guys want to see something from a proof of work standpoint that was extremely impressive in relation to this announcement, the biggest pumper this week in the layer 1 proof of work space or whatever did end up being Ergo. It went back over $1 all the way as high as $1.30. It definitely came back down with everything else, but its performance was basically destroying everything else on my watch list as far as proof of work layer 1 cryptocurrencies. So that is a bit bullish for Ergo that Cardano got announced with it, because they do tie into each other and they have that strong relationship. So from that perspective and a mining perspective, especially a GPU mining perspective, it's extremely bullish. Of course, I do have questions as to like whether or not Ergo, like a side note here, I am a little worried about Ergo moving or basically having FPGAs on the network, and I would like to see them put in some sort of stopgap for Autolicos V2. Otherwise, we could end up in a position where we just get closer and closer to FPGAs and ASICs on the Ergo network. And I think that overall, they really have built up that GPU mining space pretty big, and that community is a lot of GPU miners, and it could hurt the GPU miners pretty significantly. Of course, the Osprey team already has a bit stream for Ergo. It doesn't make GPUs uncompetitive completely. It's not like an FPGA on kaspa, for example, because it does force you to utilize the memory modules to load those up. I think, when I was talking to them, I got a little bit of insight, which was really interesting just from an ASIC resistant perspective. He did say the reason why bit streams and ASICs are more difficult on the Kapow algorithm is because of the floating point units that are required. And I think that that is probably something to focus on from an ASIC resistant algorithm perspective that should be considered. Some analysts expect an imminent market bottom after Bitcoin's active addresses reached a near 3-month high on February 28, signaling that the market is at a crucial turning point, and that may signal a capitulation moment, according to crypto intelligence platform Into the Block. Still, the crypto market's upside may be limited and invite significant volatility in the short term, which is obviously what we're experiencing now. Regardless of how these gains will last, it is momentarily positive for the market, but the question for the future of crypto, if any of it will come to fruition. If not, it will likely be negative news point for crypto, he added. It is funny, though, that a lot of people like to speculate over and over and over again on the macro or the external factors or impacts on the price of Bitcoin. And I still find it pretty funny that we have that obvious 4-year cycle that really hasn't been broken. And so people like to act all smart and push their trading analysis and say, well, it's because of the trade war, it's because of this, and it's because of that. And that happens every cycle. They're like, it's going up because of some external thing that somebody else did. But then if you zoom out on the chart, it's the same pattern. Like, it's the same pattern every 4 years. Here's the other little one, right? If you want to go see that one. 2013, 2017, and then 2021, a little bit again in the end of 21, and then 2025, right? The question is just like, how much does it go up? It always goes up a little bit less than it did the previous cycle. So, do we get a 2x from the 60K and really we stop at 120? Or do we get a full 3x out of it and, go all the way up to 180 to 210,000? It's really up in the air. The actual prices, like I said, the actual prices are what you can't know, right? And so that's why I think when we're looking at Bitcoin, we still have, or the crypto market in general, we still have the advantage of a time scale, right? And so, like I said before, we have that other 8 months here to go, and we really haven't hit that top. So if we were to look at this, let's say we're right around here in January. Would that be about 10 months? That would be about 10 months or so right there for that second tip. We're maybe 3 months out from the first tip. And that does seem to repeat itself fairly frequently, So it's going to be different from an exact price, but it's going to be extremely similar, appears to be extremely similar from a timing perspective. So that's kind of the strategy I'm looking at when I'm making some decisions for building the mining up. And like I said, the biggest change that I will make this cycle is I won't be buying previous gen Bitcoin miners again. I will more than likely just be buying however many latest Bitcoin miners are out during the bear market, right? So this time around, for example, an example of that would have been buying, the S21s instead of the S19s, right? So getting those, or the M60s probably is what I would have gone with just because of reliability, but that's a whole other topic that we could get into at a later date. If you guys are interested in that, right? So that's kind of the content shift as far as that goes. The GPU mining side of thing, and here's the screen for that. So that's what I was looking at, right? M60s, that sort of thing. And then Air Hydro is a good answer, Swamp. It's gonna come down to like how much capital you really have, right? At the end of the day, right now, we're really in build up as much hash rate as you can get phase. It's past the phase of being able to build out your infrastructure, past the phase of building out solar, usually all that sort of stuff, because the prices are cheap enough on the miners to continue to stack as much hash rate as possible because you want to scale that. And then when you get into that other range, that's when you would start looking at efficiency numbers, hydros, that sort of thing, right? So it really depends. Now, in the bear market, which one I'm going to go with? It depends on where they're being installed, and a lot more factors and of course, cost, right? So, I mean, you have a couple different ways. You could do the hydros themselves, but in those cases, you're going to have to buy the containers. If you're going to be buying containers, that's a great option if you're going to be installing, for example, one out for stranded gas, or at a hydro plant, or like some sort of stranded power scenario. Okay, well, you're already going to have to buy a container already, so why not buy one that has the hydro capability? Cool, I get that reasoning. It's but if you're going to be in a warehouse where there's just a bunch of other air miners around them and there's a ton of square footage and airflow, then you could say, well, I could get more hash rate for a cheaper price, less upfront capital. And it really just depends on, size, location, and all of that. It's not just a one-stop shop of like, it needs to for sure be hydro or it needs to for sure be air. That's going to be a situational based kind of thought process, in my humble opinion, right? I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. If you would like to see more from this particular episode, take a look up here. Don't forget to also subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me directly, you can go to sonofatech.locals.com and become a member. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday.